Today we're going to answer the question, what is the most common roll of 3 dice? At least in our test that we did in our previous assignment. The last time we were together, I had you simulate 50 rolls of 3 dice and we tracked your results. And so today we're going to answer that question, what comes out more than anything else? What's the most common result of rolling dice, 3 dice, a whole bunch of times? The handout that you're seeing right now is available on Google Classroom, and let's just kind of take a look at all the things that will be done on this assignment. If you need to pause the video and then go do part of it and then come back to the video, that's not a bad strategy. One thing, you got a little bit of formula writing to do here. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. There's really only one formula that you're going to add, and then you have to duplicate it. And it's just a sum formula. It's just going to do some adding for us. So I'll show you how to do that in just a moment here. All the instructions are right there on that part of the handout. The next thing that we'll be working on today is formatting the sheet at least a little bit. And I'm going to show you a new option here today that I'd like for you to know about. It's called alternating colors. And see if I can get this thing to cooperate here. Sorry, it scrolled on past, so we'll get that zeroed in there. Okay, alternating colors. So I'm going to show you that today, and it's an option for formatting your sheet in a pretty attractive way and pretty quickly, so I'll show you that. And then you're also going to have to create a line chart today. That's going to be a part of this assignment. You have to build the chart, and I'll show you how to do that. And then the only other thing that is involved is a little bit of customizing of that chart. Once you build a chart, you can make it look the way you want it to look by customizing it a little bit. And I don't really have detailed instructions right here about customizing the chart, but I'm going to show you what to do. All right, so let's hop up here to, there's also going to be a Google Sheet posted on Google Classroom for you that will look like this. Right now, you're looking at the Period 1 results, and right here are the Period 7 results. So, yours will just match up with your class is what will happen. So it's very similar to the M&M project that we did before. I took everybody's rolls of the dice, and you'll see all the names over on the left-hand side, and a spot up here on row number 5 where it says 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s on down, and then you see all the results. For example, this is 7th hour we're looking at right now, so Michaela Anderson had 0, 0, 0, right? You see her results. She had 2 6s, she had 8 9s, she had 1 17. You see that kind of thing, and those results are what you gave me, right? So if anybody was off on their results a little bit, I just took what you gave me. And so I've got it for everybody who was there to do it and did it correctly. So if there's a name missing, it could be, and I just switched over now to 1st hour. If there's a name missing, it could be because somebody was absent and they weren't there to do it, or they just didn't do it correctly enough for me to use their numbers. All right, so for the rest of this movie, I'm going to use 1st hour as my demonstration, but if you're in the 7th hour class, it'll all work the same. You just may have to work with some different row numbers, some very slight differences if you're in, because there's a different number of people is the reason for that. All right, so let's go back over to 1st hour here and let's take a look. So what we're going to do here first is just figure out, we'll just start with the 3s, right? If we're looking at the column of 3s, and we said in part 1 of this dice thing, I said you're not going to get very many 3s, I don't think, because they're not very common. There's only one way to roll a 3 when you're doing 3 dice, and that's a 1, a 1, and a 1, and that just doesn't happen very often. And I think we're going to find that to be true. There won't be very many of these, but let's take all of these 3s, and this is really kind of what I want you to learn. If you wind up in a situation where you're faced with a whole bunch of numbers, kind of like we are here, and you have to do some calculations with it, man, I don't want to sit there with a calculator and punch that all in, or I don't really even feel like doing that in my head or whatever. So a program like Google Sheets is great for this kind of thing because it makes it easy. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all of the threes here. I'm just going to select and pull down on all of the threes, starting up at Alyssa, and I'm using first hour as my example. So starting up at Alyssa and going all the way down to Bridget, I just selected all the threes. Now, well, actually, you know what? Yeah, we could do that. I'd just come up here to my functions button up here, and we've done this before. I'm just going to calculate a sum. All I want the computer to do is just add all those up for me. So I'll just ask for a sum. It's going to pop on here. It's kind of showing me a little preview of the function or the formula that it's going to put in. The little orange box is showing me, okay, here are the numbers I'm going to use. I'll just go ahead and press the enter key. So it turns out in first hour, it looks like we had 9 occurrences of a 3. I'm going to click right back where that 9 is. That's on cell C31. And I'm just going to duplicate that across. Grab the little duplication handle, that little box in the corner of the cell, pull it across, and there we go. All of those sum formulas have now been copied over for the appropriate column, and we're getting answers all the way across. Now, this is first hour, and it could actually turn out different in 7th hour. I don't know. But if I'm looking right here, I'm looking at all those sums, and I'm thinking 162 is the highest. And so in our test in first hour, if we were trying to answer the question, what's the most common outcome? Well, it looks like it's 11s. That's what we got in first hour. And that's, that's a lot of rolls of the dice that are represented there. And we got more 11s than anything else. Now, it wasn't by a huge margin. 12s had a lot, and 10s and 9s and even 8s weren't too far off. But 11s had more than anything else. So we do have some numbers, some data, some statistics that would defend us if we said there were more 11s than anything else. And if somebody said, well, how do you prove that? Well, it's right there. We tested it. We rolled the dice a lot of times, and we got more 11s than anything else. All right, so we have the answer to the question for first hour. 7th hour might look a little bit different, but here's first hour. All right, now next up, let's do some formatting. Now, formatting, again, just gets into all the fonts and alignments, and you can kind of do it however you want, but I am going to show you a new thing that we haven't talked about. Maybe you know about it. So I'm going to select all. I'm not going to worry about this part up here that says Dice Part 2, Period 1. It's up in cell A1 and A2. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to select all of the names that are on the list and all the numbers and all these labels and everything like totals and 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s. I'm just going to select all of that. And I'm going to go to the Format menu, and I'm going to use this option that says Alternating Colors. Okay, so I'll just click that. I'm letting you see it for a second. I'm hesitating. So you look at it's on the Format menu and Alternating Colors. Boom. Now, if I look over on the right-hand side of Google Sheets, it first of all has come up with right here, there are some what you might call, it says default styles or their preset styles or whatever. If you see a color scheme there that you like, you could use it. Right? You could just click one of these and it will format your sheet to look like what you see right there. Now you can also customize it right down here below. The header is the top row. It's the very first row that you selected. So you can have a header color or a top row color. And then what you do with alternating colors is you, just like it sounds like, you alternate. You have a color 1 to color 2, and then it goes color 1, color 2, color 1, color 2, color 1, color 2, and it just alternates between those colors to make your sheet readable and to make it look good. So you could pick a default up here, or you could customize it if you want to. Either way. I might pick blue right here. And when I click on that blue, you can see it's showing me what's going to happen on the customized thing. It's got kind of a medium blue for the top row, and then the color 1 is white, and then color 2 is a real light blue. So most of the rows of my sheet are going to go like white, light blue, white, light blue, white, light blue, that kind of thing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click Done. And I'll just click out here on my sheet. I'll just click off of where I had it selected, and I can see it better now. And look at that. I think that's a really attractive way. And it makes alternating rows makes it easier to read because you can track, like if I'm looking at Colby Conrick's numbers here, they're in blue, right? They're shaded in blue, and I can track them with my eyes right across there. But if I go down to Brooklyn's, they're shaded in white, and it makes it easier to read those because they're alternating colors. Cool. All right, there we go. All right, so now let's move on to the next part. The first thing was you got to get this formula in here that's doing the sums. Got to do that. Second thing was formatting it. You don't have to use that alternating colors trick. You could just kind of give fill colors and fonts and things like that, however you want to do it. Now the last thing is this. We're going to build a chart based on this data. Charts just help you to, it's kind of like a picture of the data. It helps you to visually see the results of how this all turned out. All right, so what we're going to want on this chart is right up here on row number 5, I'm going to want, these are called labels up here where it says 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, all the way down to 18s. Those are called labels, and I'm going to want those. So I'm going to click and drag and select them. Now, the other thing I want to have represented on this chart is down here, and this is first hour, and this is where in 7th hour it might be on a different row, so be careful, but I want these totals. All right? So here's the problem. If I just come along and I click and drag on the totals down here, okay, I just selected these, and those need to be selected, but when I selected these labels up here, the 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, those got unselected. Well, that's not good. I want both. I need this stuff that's on row 5. I need the 3s, 4s, 5s, all those labels. I need them. They need to be selected. But these down here also need to be selected. Well, okay, maybe if I just click and drag and select the whole thing. Would that be good? Spoiler alert, quick answer, no, 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 and no. Don't do that. Don't build your chart doing that because that's going to be a mess. Trust me. You don't want that. All right, so what's the solution to this? I want this stuff that's on row 5, that's got to be selected. But in first hour, I also want these numbers that are on row 31, that's got to be selected, but they're not right next to each other. I can't just click and drag to select them. So here it is. And you can do it on a Chromebook too. It's a little trickier on a Chromebook, but you can do it. I'm going to click and drag on the 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, right up here on row 5. I'm going to click and drag on all of those labels. All right, I got those. Now, I'm just going to click on the control key, hold the control key down. This is a two-handed operation. Hold down the control key and then click and drag on the numbers that you want down here on first hour, it's row 31 on these totals. So you have to just do a regular click and drag up here on row 5 to get these. Hold down the control key and then click and drag on these. And doing that control key thing on the keyboard allows you to select things that are not right next to each other. So I've got this stuff on row 5 is selected, and this stuff on row 31 is selected. And that's exactly what I want. And that's what you're going to need too. That's what you're going to have to do. All right, so now I'm going to go to the Insert menu. There's a lot of ways to do this part of it, but I'm just going to go to the Insert menu right here, and I'm going to go to Chart. All right, again, I'm just kind of letting that sit there for a second. I want you to see where it is. Insert, Chart. There's also a button on the toolbar for inserting a chart, so lots of ways to do it. I'm going to go ahead and click there. Now, every time you insert a chart, Google Sheets tries to do its best to guess what kind of chart you want. And you can see what it gave me here. This is called a column chart. And actually for today, nice try, Google Sheets, but not what I am assigning for this assignment. This is not what I want. All right, so don't leave it like this. All right, and I'm going to pull this over to the side a little bit. Okay. Here's what I would like for you to do. As soon as you insert the chart, if you'll look over here on the right-hand side, you'll get what's called the chart editor. All right, up at the top it says chart editor. There are two parts to the chart editor. There's setup and there's customize. And I'm kind of pointing to those right now. Set up and customize. All right. Well, this says it's done a column chart, and it doesn't look terrible. It's not that this is an awful chart, but it's not what I want for today. So click where it says column chart and come down here to where it says, you should see it'll say line. This is what I want you to pick one of these today, either a line chart or a smooth line chart. Again, I'm showing you these right now. I'm kind of hesitating before I click anything because I want you to see line chart or smooth line chart. This one's not going to work today, this combo chart. Don't do that. And don't do any of the other kinds either. Today, the assignment is to have either a line chart or a smooth line chart. So if you give me the wrong kind of chart, lost points. All right, I don't care if it's smooth or a regular line chart, but you can pick whatever you want there. All right, I'll just pick line chart. I'm just going to go with this one. I'll click it. And now, if I look over here at my chart, here it kind of looks like a mountain. And this is in science stuff, in statistics stuff. This is kind of what's called a bell curve, but the 11s are the ones that had the most. If you remember, this is period 1 that we're looking at, so that's where the top of the mountain is, right? The highest part of the line chart, right? It kind of climbs up, and all these numbers in the middle have more, and all these numbers out on the ends, like 3s and 4s and 17s and 18s, not so many, all right? There's a whole branch of science that gets into this that you may or may not be interested in. All right, so now the only other thing left to do here is some customizations. I'd like for you to customize it somehow. I'm not going to tell you exactly how you have to customize it, but I would like for you to do some customization. That's done over here on the chart editor. You come over to where it says customize, and then you have all these like different little sections and categories here that you can kind of experiment with a little bit and see what you can do. For example, if I go to where it says chart style, and there's all these little, they look like greater than signs, just a little arrow. If you click it, it spins down, it opens up some possibilities for you here. So, here's a customization. Would you like a background color? All right, would you like to change? Right now, that chart just has kind of a plain white background. Would you like to give it like a background color? There, I just did that. If you add a border color, the borders on the chart are not really very thick. They're almost hard to see. A font, would you like to switch up the font to something different than what's on there? There's not a ton of choices here, but you could switch up the font. It'll look a little bit different if you do. And if you get done, like this is all in the chart style section right here. So if you get done kind of, okay, I'm experimenting, I'm trying things out, I'm seeing what happens, I can close that up if I go to where this little down pointing arrow is, and then I can go look at other things. For example, like right here, chart and axis titles. Well, the chart title right now just says totals. I'm going to do this. I'm going to come where it says totals, and I'm going to say, there, I'm going to change that to rolling 3 dice, right? And then you do have a few options about your title here, like I could make it bold if I wanted to. I could do like center it if I wanted to. I could make the title a little bit bigger if I wanted to. That's font size. And the text color, if I felt like I want to change that. So you could do that if you want to. You could change the text color. So you have some options about the chart title right there. Okay, well, cool. So I'm going to come up here to where the little arrow is for chart and axis titles. I'm going to click that and close it up. If I go to series, here's what's happening here. The line color is in play, right? Right now, by default, or automatically, Google Sheets gave me a blue line. Okay, well, maybe I don't want blue. Maybe I'd rather have black. So I just changed the line color. And there's different kinds of lines. You could have a dashed line or a solid line. I like a solid line. Line thickness, you can make the line a little bit thicker if you wanted to. I just did that. I could add point size, would put like little items or dots or something. That's not big enough for you to see. Boom. All right. So when I put point size on there, it's kind of showing little dots right above the numbers, like the different points along the and the point shape. Right now I've got circles, but I could do stars. Those aren't really showing up a whole lot. X's, those aren't really showing up a whole lot either. I'm going to go back to circles, and I'll just do those. And I like, there's one down here that says data labels. I like data labels. I'm going to turn on the data labels, and you can see that what happened is, if you look at my chart, it put the actual number of, like, if I'm thinking, okay, 11s were the most, but how much were they? Well, now it's telling me 162, right? So it's right there. Cool. I kind of like it. All right, I'm going to close up the part that says series. And there are some other things here. I'm going to wrap this up here pretty quickly. You could there's no legend right now on this, but I could add a legend if I wanted to. I don't know that that's really terribly helpful on this chart. So I'm going to close up the legend. You can do some things with axis lines. You can draw in some axis lines, some vertical axis lines if you want to. You can show different things there. Grid lines, you could, you can show some, you can show some other grid lines in there. I'm just kind of playing around with options here, and it's showing them on my chart. All right. Well, so now what you're looking at here, I'll go ahead and close that up. This is kind of the whole result now, right? Let's just review all the things that we did. You're going to have plenty of time to get this done, so don't sweat it. The only formula you have to write is that sum formula down here at the bottom. Got to do that. That's kind of thing number one. Do the sum formula. Second thing you got to do is you have to format these numbers a little bit so that they look different than they did when you first got the spreadsheet open. I used alternating colors to do that. Next thing you got to do is you have to build this chart by selecting the right things up here, selecting those labels and those sums down here, and then do insert chart. And we want either a line or a smooth line chart today. And then what you got to do is you have to customize that chart at least a little bit. Okay. All right. And so that brings it to a close. That makes the assignment finished, and you're ready to roll.